So I was thinking to myself the other day about how stylistic BBC One shows are. I mean, they're surprisingly consistent in tone, style, and even sense of humour. This can be seen everywhere, but a weird trend is the title cards. Specifically how they just come out of nowhere. You know, I don't know why this has become a trend, and to be honest, I kind of like it. You know, it just cuts straight to the episode. It's very Flabagian. However, now I think it's being overused, and it's starting to become annoying. Normal People is honest in every sense of the word. It presents to the audience a completely open perspective into an incredibly intimate relationship. One in which two people are entirely vulnerable with one another. And well, I've never seen this done to this extent before. At least not in any other show. In our increasingly more dysfunctional world, where fewer people are getting to experience a genuine human connection, this show is a beacon reminding the viewer how important being truly vulnerable with another human being is for people. In other words, how necessary it is for human survival. It's beautiful. So I wanted to make this video to talk about a few things in particular that struck me about this show. This program can be extremely delicate in conveying meaning to the audience. You as a viewer are expected to pick up on glances and looks and expressions in order to devise what's going on in the story. The show, it doesn't really have a strong narrative and relies more on character interaction to fill its runtime. You know, at first glance, there seems to be a lot of just, well, footage. These moments are where in the book that the show was based off, the reader was presented with the inner dialogue of the characters. Instead, the show has resorted to smart and subtle acting, good camera placement and movement, to let the audience know what's happening in the characters' heads. This is done extraordinarily, and conveys a far more realistic interpretation of relationships. Through its show don't tell communication, it assumes the audience has a bit of emotional intelligence. And this all leads me on to my next point.
Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens.
Everyone here is doing a fantastic job. One thing that surprised me is the skill of the supporting cast. I mean, it really shines through. These are some of the best chorus cast I've ever seen. I somehow noticed them and, well, didn't notice them at the same time. Yep, and that I can't explain. Moving on to both essential actors. They are, of course, doing a phenomenal job. I'd love to see Daisy Edgar-Jones in stuff in the future. I think after this show she's blown up a bit anyway. And now it's hard to put one actor above another, but I'm sorry, Paul Mescal, I think, stole the show. You've probably seen this stereotype on TikTok that the best acting is seen mostly in emotional breakdown scenes. Mostly in scenes that feature copious amounts of crying or yelling.
Louder, say it louder. I've abandoned my time. Fucking ass! Why did you look for my fucking daughter? My fucking wife. Fucking take the joke. Every day. The band. I hope you're dead. Die with your goddamn empty heart. Loud noise. I'm upset. I don't know what we're yelling about.
We were 18, you know, we just we act like idiots. I left Carrickally thinking I could have a different life. But I hate it here, and I can never go back. Because those friendships are gone, and Rob is gone, and I can't see him again. I can't get that life back. I'm sorry.
Just shouting isn't always the best way to go about this. Paul Mescal portrays the realism of a 21st century man attempting to cling on to self-respect as he melts from the inside out, in just an incredible performance in this show.
Oh no.
Nudity. It's a big area of television and a very sensitive one that some shows utilize and others don't. What I will say is, in terms of frequency and total volume in terms of runtime, this show has some of the most out of any TV show I've ever seen. My opinion's always been that nudity can be used sparingly and tastefully to contribute to a project. And yeah, I think the vast majority of the show's more explicit scenes falls under this tasteful category, especially when you consider that the show's basis is the up close and personal representation of a relationship. Now, where I draw the line is when it is clearly being used as an incentive to get people to watch the show. Then I feel it's just needless, pointless, and I suppose corrupt. And I feel parts of the show unfortunately fell into this category also. Where I really struggled to stay watching, however, was when the show depicted abuse. I did in fact have to turn the program off a few times. Now, this may have been the point, as I feel the creators were trying to represent how far a particular character had fallen. However, this is one of the areas where I do feel the show just went too far. Now, that being said, I've watched a lot of interviews of the cast of the show, and it looks like backstage it was all handled very well and the actors were always comfortable, so well, that at least makes me happy.
Filming the sex scenes in Normal People was safe and empowering.
They even hired something called an intimacy coordinator, which I'd never heard of before, but there you go.
Yeah, I mean, Ita O'Brien, who was our intimacy coordinator on the show, was just invaluable in kind of creating an atmosphere that meant that Paul and I felt very safe.
My name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
The soundtrack, oh, it's just amazing. Yeah, I'm still making my way through it, there's a lot of it, and it takes time to discover music. But some of the songs in this show are really extraordinary. Here are some of my favorites. Do you know the Muffin Man?
The Muffin Man?
Well, she's married to the Muffin Man.
The Muffin Man? The Muffin Man!
Ever since reading the book, I have realised that the book's title, Normal People, is trying to represent that phrase as what it is, a misnomer. The book and show points out that, well, there's no such thing as normal. In fact, I always imagine the show's title in italics or quotation marks. Everyone is dysfunctional in their own way, and these characters perhaps more so than anyone else. I've been watching a lot of videos about the show, and as one points out, the show could be seen to portray a typical 21st century relationship. I disagree. The relationship depicted is an exceptional relationship, not normal in any way, one that many viewers will sadly never get to experience. I suppose the whole point in this program is to prove how important these attachments are in a world where they're disappearing. I don't know, is this just me? If you disagree, just tell me in the comments.
Listen, that child is going to be a pro athlete.
Okay, it was a weak ending. Now, hear me out. The program ends with the two main characters going their separate ways, content with the time that they spent with one another, but ready to move on and live their lives separately. And, well, what this is essentially doing is answering the question, will they, won't they, with probably not, maybe, possibly not, I don't know. I suppose it's a reflection of the show's aforementioned subtle style, but no! There is this thing that some stories such as these do where they have an open-ended finale in order to leave the audience thinking. I, as an audience member though, can't help but think, so you've just purposefully left us without a genuinely satisfying ending. Well, thanks for that. Like, I know you should keep the audience wondering, but not to this extent, come on. Aaron Sorkin, the writer, said in his masterclass, the last 15 minutes of any movie are the most important. This isn't a movie, but still, it's what the audience will be left with, and I don't know if it's just me, but I just didn't like this ending so much. And as we all know, if you can't end something well, then what's the point?
Now, even TV shows don't have themes. They often employ just a brief sound.
Box is okay. Leave the box alone. How about that?
Brevity can be highly evocative.
Just